It's 2:30, so more people should be.
I don't know how.
Somebody else is trying.
Okay. This is what we should have did. Mute it. Unmute.
Yeah, Tim, we can start.
I think if I do this, but I don't know. Oh, there we go. Mary.
Dear family members, neighbors, and friends, welcome to our Spring 2021 Service of Remembrance into this virtual space that Zoom creates. It is our third virtual service, and I wish our last one. To be clear, this service is not in place for in-person service. So we will have that one when the time comes for that. Now is our time together, sacred time, not just to reconnect, but also to share, to laugh, to cry, to tell what is here, right there in our hearts. Allow yourself to feel sense of connection and shared experience of grief, as well of hope and gratitude. Tell us unique and wonder-filled answers on how it is to live without the ones you cannot see anymore. What are memories that strengthen you? What are the memories that you hold on to? What are the memories you learn to let go? What are the memories that give you hope and you teach us resilience? Dear friends, there are 6 residents that we will remember and celebrate. The number is overwhelming and the times we live are overwhelming. We trust that you will stay safe, well, and healthy. And finally, most of us are holding in our thoughts and in our prayers, Silverberg family. Yes, we will remember Jean Silverberg in our next summer service of remembrance instead of doing it today. Let us continue our service.
Can you hear me? Is it?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Thank you. I will share with you a psalm that for me has brought some words of consolation and hope. Psalm 121. I lift my eyes to the hills. From where is my help to come? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved, and he who watches over you will not fall asleep. Behold, he who keeps watch over Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord himself watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand, so that the sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. It is he who shall keep you safe. The Lord shall watch over your going out and your coming in from this time forth forevermore.
Thank you, Harriet. Caroline, are you there?
So
Which
can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'd like to do is share with you a poem by Mary Oliver called When Death Comes. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snap the purse shut, when death comes like the chicken pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it is over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride, married to amazement. I was the bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. When it is over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Capital Lakes is built over Holy Land. Eons before Christianity and other beliefs were brought to its shores, these ancient people existed here. The lark and the nightingale were this culture's choir. The cathedral sky was its shelter. The towering trees and flowering shrubs were its parapets. In this sacred place, I offer a respectful plea to Gichi Manadu, the Great Spirit, to keep in peace and love today. When people came to Capital Lakes to join us, they became our brothers and our sisters. They became our family, and one thought of them warm and sweet. O Great Spirit, we feel your holy breath upon our heads and upon our faces. We ask your kindness to all here present and for those whom they represent. We ask that you give guidance to those who attend to the needs of this community today and well into all our tomorrows. We thank you, Great Spirit, for the remembrance of these dear friends whose life we shared with us. We thank you. We thank you. May the sun bring you new energy by day. May the moon refresh you by night. May the rain softly wash away all your worries. And may the breeze gently breathe new strength into your being. May you have the strength of eagle wings to fly to new heights, and the wisdom of the universe to carry even them. May you walk greatly and gently upon Mother Earth and know her beauty all the days of your life.
The persons we are remembering and honoring today were our dearly loved family members, our neighbors, our friends. They were givers or sources of love and nurture, guidance, wisdom, and happiness. The light and warmth of their presence enriched our lives. We find great comfort knowing that as we remember them and the time spent with them, they continue to give us those gifts and blessings. As I read the name of each person we are remembering today, a family member, friend, or staff member is invited, as you choose, to share with us a characteristic or special memory of that person who is dear to you. The sharing of these special memories help us all to celebrate and remember these significant people in our lives. We remember John Allen Cruz, who died peacefully on December 11th at age 89 at the Capitol Lakes Retirement Communities Health Center. John was born on August 10th, 1931 in La Crosse, Wisconsin. After the death of his mother, he grew up in the loving Milwaukee home of his uncle and aunt. John graduated from Beloit College in 1953, from Garrett Theological Seminary at Northwestern University in 1956, and did advanced studies in the Boston Theological Institute. Hallmarks during each of John's ministry appointments were his exceptional creativity, his thoughtful and provocative sermons, his interest in and knowledge of hymns and the other music he developed for worship services, and his incorporation of films within worship and teaching. Throughout his formal career and in retirement, John's social justice activism was an integral part of who he was. He participated in the March on Washington, civil rights actions in Chicago, and Vietnam War protests in Boston. John was a dedicated father and grandfather, using his imagination and whatever materials were available to create puppets, dioramas, rock museums, menus for play restaurants, and hand-drawn placemats and decorations for themed birthday parties. He was also a dedicated husband and partner to Ginny, fully supporting her career. In 1984, John was cast as Tevye in the Children's Theater of Madison production of Fiddler on the Roof, which was the first of his many roles in community musical theater. Everyone who had the opportunity to perform with John or attend any of these concerts appreciated not only his beautiful, resonant bass voice, but also the kindness and care he brought to the experience of sharing in the community of performance. John and Ginny traveled regularly to Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Chicago, and New York City for arts-intensive visits full of opera, theater, and museums. Beginning in 1957, they enjoyed many seasons at the annual Shakespeare Festival in Stratford, Ontario. They were active promoters of the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis during its beginning years, as well as of the American Players Theater in Spring Green from its first years. As avid film buffs, John and Ginny treated the Wisconsin Film Festival as if it were an out-of-town trip for which they cleared their calendars for a spring vacation to see as many films as possible. After moving to the Capitol Lakes Retirement Community in 2010, John served as chair of the Opera Committee and on the Film and Program Committees, and developed monthly solo programs on musical themes to share his specialized knowledge and insights.
Thank you, Lene.
Thank you, Gouda.
I'd like to invite families and friends of John to share your thoughts. So just wave your hand and Tim will unmute you.
Gouda, could I offer some?
Yes, please.
John was all of those things, but if you move new to Capitol Lakes, and there's this wonderful couple called Ginny and John who welcome you, and have you in their home and you have them in your home, you begin to establish a friendship that is very special. But the thing that was missed in that reading was John's smile, his deep voice, which I could imagine when he sermonized or sang was just wonderful. So Jim and I shall miss John.
Thank you, Sal. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Sally. Am I unmuted? Yeah,
Yeah, we can hear you and see.
thank you. I'm Jenny, John's wife of 62 years. John died exactly 3 months ago today. On that morning, he had been with us during our weekly Cruz family Zoom conversation. And during that afternoon, he died peacefully while he was napping in his recliner in the Capitol Lakes Health Center. During the last years of John's life, his physical needs required full-time attention, first in the terraces and later in the health center. And until the pandemic hit us all, on most days, John was wheeled by the staff to have lunch with me in the Henry Street Cafe, and almost every evening to our Heights apartment. And friends who were residents escorted John to the live Grand Hall concerts and lectures he enjoyed so much. During the lockdown, the enterprising health center staff made it possible for John to have weekly conversations with friends and Zoom opportunities with the family, along with, weather permitting, chances for him to be with us in the season's patio. Our family knows that John understood death to be a natural part of life. He changed our lives in significant ways, and we are so grateful for his life.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you.
Sally Drew, and I've known Ginny and John for many years. And actually, they're probably the reason that I came to Capitol Lakes, to be honest. I knew I had to do something, and this seemed a natural extension of our friendship in many ways. We attended many Christmas parties, Ginny and John, and listened to opera quizzes and met with friends. We also worked together off and on over the years, so we had that as well. Ginny and I did anyway. And Hank, my husband, doesn't remember very many things, Ginny, but we had the opportunity to see kind of a short version of Fiddlers on the Roof, where John just and somebody else sang a few songs over at the Oakwood facility one night. And Hank still remembers that John was Tevye. That so much impressed him. And he used to come to the parties too, so he knew John. But that, I think that's what he remembers most. So I know that it's never, even when you know it's coming, it's never any easier. So you're always in my thoughts. And John will be too.
Thank you, Sally.
And I want.
Anyone else would like to share and join us in sharing?
And this is a buckle on my suspenders. They're not a mouth of a.
Well, we remember John. We'll remember now Marvin Kennebeck, who passed away December 24th of last year in Oshkosh at his son Stephen's home, surrounded by his children. He was 89. He was born at Walter Reed Hospital on his parents' anniversary, October 4th, 1931, the only child of Major General Marvin E. Kennebeck Sr. and Elizabeth Grove Kennebeck. He was commissioned in the Air Force, where he met a nurse and fellow officer Margaret L. DeLong in San Antonio, Texas. They married on his birthday, October 4th, 1958, in Jamestown, New York. They were blessed with 5 children born at Air Force bases in the US and Japan. In 1968, he accepted a job at Century Insurance that moved the family from San Antonio, Texas to Stevens Point, Wisconsin. In 1979, he opted for warmer climates and took a position with the American Welding Society in Miami, Florida. He retired on his birthday in 1996. In retirement, there was a lot of traveling. Dad's favorite was to go by rail. He also became a fan of a real football, soccer. He was a great supporter of his grandkids' events, from football, soccer, gymnastics, to art exhibits and concerts. He also gave himself, which for an introvert was not easy. He volunteered in Orlando with the Literacy Network and forged wonderful bonds with the adults he helped. In Madison, he tutored elementary school students in math. Dad was one of the lucky ones who found love for a second time when he met Eileen Ellingson at the senior classes in Madison. They found an ideal home at Capitol Lakes in downtown Madison and spent several years enjoying travel, music, theater, and one another's company. Dad was humble, soft-spoken, intelligent, well-read, and well-traveled. He was kind and generous beyond measure. We will miss his regular Sunday phone calls and visits. He was preceded in that by his parents and his wife, Margaret. We remember Marvin. So friends, it's your turn now. Melissa? Yeah.
Remember, oops, wait. I want to remember Marv because he was a member of our floor on 4th floor main gate.
Yeah.
And we have dinners together in spring and in fall that are catered, or they started out everybody bringing something, but then catering worked better. What Marv brought most of the time, and I really looked forward to it, was his sense of humor. He brought a joke to tell. He brought a quiz to give us, or some kind of game that was always very amusing, broke the ice, and we will miss him the next time we are allowed to gather.
Thank you, Melissa.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Liz, Marvin's daughter, and I happen to be at Capitol Lakes with Arlene right now. We're watching it together.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to share my video. Well, do you want me to share video?
I don't care.
She doesn't care. All right. Let's see. I got to put my mask back on. So here we are. There's
Hello.
Arlene. Yeah. First of all, it's so nice that we have this opportunity, even though we're in the midst of times when we can't gather. Even doing it virtually means a lot. And just hearing the obituary read again meant a lot and brought back very nice memories. And I live here in Madison, so I got to see Dad and Arlene all the time. He was kind and generous, thoughtful, a real good thinker. You know, he liked to exercise his brain as much as possible, but was always interested in what was going on with his kids and his grandkids. It was just, and it was real nice that the kids could all be there with him his last couple of days. And he went peacefully. He wasn't in pain. He'd had a stroke shortly before, and we had had conversations with him when things were kind of looking not very good. And he said very plainly, he said, I lived a good life. I raised a good family. I'm ready to go when it's my time. Yeah. So we miss him, but we know we'll see him again. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you so much. Yeah, please, go ahead. Yeah, just unmute yourself. Yeah.
I'm the youngest of the 5 kids that Liz just started off here, and I think Tripp's on here too, one of our other brothers. It was always good to see Dad at Capitol Lakes with Arlene. They had so many good friends and good times there, and going to dinners with them down at the restaurant. And I'll miss them, and I know you guys will too. And it's so nice to have this to do and just be a part of it for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share? I think.
I do have a question for Arlene or her family. I heard about the wonderful genealogy that he did and how much he worked at it. He also taught a class on genealogy sponsored by Plato in the Grand Hall. So this is just a curious question, but which of you have inherited that wonderful legacy from your father?
Oh,
Liz?
that's a good question. I know he's got binders and binders here, and honestly, there's still a lot of clearing out and cleaning up to do. So we haven't even gotten to that point where we're deciding who's going to have what. But I think one of my brother Steve, who's working right now and wasn't able to join this, I think he's expressed interest in holding on to that and seeing how much work Dad had done and maybe even continuing it.
Hi, Arlene.
Joe is saying hi.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
There's someone else gonna talk.
Hello?
Yeah.
There I am. Hey, I'm Marvin's oldest son. Another Marvin. I'm the third. On the genealogy, he was great with my wife. She was really interested in it, and he spent a lot of time with her and let her share his. I don't remember what website it was he used, but she got to share that and do a lot of research on her family from the Old South. So she enjoyed that. And I don't know many of you. I was there a couple times. We actually stayed in one of the guest apartments and visited Dad and Arlene for a long weekend and had a good time. But for any of you that were friends with Dad, I appreciate your friendship, and we're all going to miss him.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We remember Marvin. Lene.
Thanks, Guta. Now we remember Andrew Paul Jensen, age 92, a longtime resident of Madison. He passed away peacefully on January 5th, 2021. Paul was born on May 9th, 1928 in Sandusky, Michigan, the son of Andrew Peter and Clara Keeler Jensen. He grew up in Jackson, Michigan and Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and spent summers during high school and college on a family farm near Marlette, Michigan. He was an Eagle Scout and enjoyed fly fishing in the Florida Keys as a boy. After graduating from Michigan State University in 1950 in business administration, he served 2 years in the U.S. Air Force in Waco, Texas. Paul owned and led business operations in Madison and Michigan for many years. He was president of Capital Steel and Supply Company in Madison, vice president of Sanilac Steel in Marlette, Michigan, and a longtime director at Jensen Bridge and Supply Company in Sandusky, Michigan. Paul was community-minded. He was a director at the M&I Bank in Madison and served on the following boards: United Way of Dane County, Madison Metropolitan YMCA, Mental Health Association of Dane County, and the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce. He was an outdoor enthusiast who enjoyed skiing in Colorado, fly fishing in Florida, and bird hunting in Wisconsin. He founded the South Central Wisconsin chapter of the Ruffed Grouse Society. He particularly enjoyed bird hunting in the colorful fall foliage, and in his later years, switched to foraging for mushrooms, which he would later incorporate in his gourmet dinners. Paul was a great chef. His marinated and grilled flank steaks were a family favorite. It was not unusual to find him outside grilling even in the coldest months, when he wore only a hat for extra warmth. Paul and Eileen shared a love for classical music. For years, they attended performances of the Madison Symphony and the Madison Opera and were active supporters of both. They also frequently attended the Lyric Opera in Chicago and the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Most everyone who knew Paul remembers his signature bow ties, humor, and his ability to make people feel welcome and comfortable. Friends and family recall his fabulous memory for jokes and humorous stories that he would slip into conversation with grace and perfect timing. Paul was always active physically. He enjoyed tennis and golf with family and friends and was a member of the Maple Bluff Country Club, where he served on the board. He was an avid jogger who ran 1 to 2 miles every morning. Paul is survived by his loving wife of 65 years, Eileen.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll make a couple of comments. I'm Andrew Jensen Jr. And I have 2 boys. One is Andrew Jensen III. So
Right.
it's a great legacy, and with a long list of things that my dad taught me, I passed down to my sons with cooking and activity and community-minded service. And I live in Milwaukee and got to Madison a lot to see my dad, and my mom and sister are on too, and I'm sure we'll chime in, but we'll miss him and communicate at a different level with him now. And very proud son.
Thank you.
Abby?
Yeah, Abby.
Here we go. So I'm Abby. So there were the 2 of us in the family, my brother and I. And over the past weeks, I've heard from many friends beautiful words and descriptions of my dad that include adjectives such as gentle, kind, friendly, easy to talk with, curious about others, funny, like to make people laugh, and then also finally, very stoic. And these are all super appropriate adjectives for my dad. I recall several years ago looking through papers that my dad had. He was such a funny man, and really just had this encyclopedia knowledge of jokes. My husband thinks that he never repeated a joke, and I think maybe I've known him long enough to know that he has repeated a few jokes, but it's not many. And a few years ago, I came across a photograph that he had in a humor kind of folder, and it was of a sketch of a big bird, very long neck, like an egret, who had just snatched up a frog in its beak, in its long beak. But the frog was still dangling out of the stork or egret's mouth, and had held the frog held the stork's neck very tightly. The frog was not going to give up. And that is so indicative of my dad's stoicism in his later years, when he endured a great deal of back pain and neuropathy pain, and was just always so even keeled, even tempered, never complained, and was just an amazing attribute that I never knew he had until his later years. We are all going to miss my dad greatly. I do know now that he is not in pain, and I am grateful for that. And thank you, Guta, for gathering us all together.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm Eileen, Paul's wife of about 67 years. We've enjoyed many things together. He's a sweet, gentle, thoughtful man. And we enjoyed one another, as well as wonderful trips around the world. And it couldn't have been a more delightful marriage. And we have two wonderful children, our son Andrew and our daughter Abby. And we get to see them quite often. And we think of Paul and what he has done in the community, and on board of the opera and the symphony. And so he has done his duty in the arts, which we enjoy very much. May he rest in peace. We miss him.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mary France, you need to unmute yourself. There we go.
Back a few years ago, the residents of the independent living had a group that took residents of the terraces to the various concerts in the Grand Hall. And I almost every week had the chance to visit with Paul and take him and later Eileen too to the concerts. He didn't have much to say, but he always so much appreciated the music and appreciated the company and going together. And I can see, I wish I had known him when he was telling all those wonderful jokes, but he always had a ready smile, and he was a very sweet person.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary.
Hi, Guta. Jack.
Hey,
Bowles.
Jack. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say a few words about my good friend Paul, who we're neighbors out at Maple Bluff, and we had a lot of good occasions together, and fishing and hunting, and we used to call him the Great Dane. And this is a very appropriate time to tell this one of Paul's jokes. Leap year is coming, or the times changing on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Paul said, "You know who invented that? That was done by a fellow named Chancellor of Germany called Adenauer." So that was Paul's timely joke. So bless him and bless him and the family and a great guy and a good friend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. We remember Paul. Martha Smith Payne, age 90, passed away peacefully on Monday, January 18 this year. She was born on September 21st, 1930 at Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C. to Isabel and Junius P. Smith. Martha was born into a military family with her father working as a U.S. Army doctor and her mother as a nurse. They were always on the move. In fact, her childhood was marked by more than 40 moves by the time she was 20. Upon graduation from high school, Martha spent time in Japan before continuing with her undergraduate education, earning a bachelor's degree in history from Connecticut College. In 1960, Martha married George Simmers Payne Jr., an assistant professor of English at Yale University, and they had two daughters, Hillary and Alexandra. She and George divorced several years later. Martha proceeded to raise two strong, independent women, supporting them always in their passions and endeavors, including the world of horses, gymnastics, music lessons, and instilling in them a deep love of travel and adventure. She was quoted as saying, "What I do at work is my job. My children are my career." Martha was surrounded by a special group of friends at all times. Her books. "My books are my friends," she would always say. Wherever she moved, her books came too. Her home was always filled with multiple bookshelves that housed her vast library. She was an avid reader of historical fiction and nonfiction with a particular focus and love of European history, most notably British royal history and the Italian Renaissance. She loved British mystery writers, particularly Dick Francis and Agatha Christie, along with Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. Lastly, Martha also had a deep love for classical music and opera. She spent most of her career as an executive assistant to the director of the Yale School of Music. Naturally, she got to know many of the music students and faculty and made every effort to attend their concerts and recitals. One close friend described how two of them would attend student rehearsals of the Yale opera program, especially when opera stars like Renata Scotto and Carlo Bergonzi were invited as guest instructors to give Yale's and coming opera singers performance feedback. Martha also enjoyed having close friends over to enjoy a glass of wine and talk about books, long before book clubs ever became fashionable. In 1998, Martha moved from New Haven, Connecticut to Bozeman, Montana to be near old family friends and enjoy a change of scenery. She moved to Madison, Wisconsin in 2014 to be near daughter Alexandra, who became her consummate and amazing caretaker and advocate as she moved into her twilight years. Martha slipped away peacefully, surrounded by her books, and knowing that she was loved and cherished by her family. She will be sent on her final journey accompanied by a few of her favorite authors while reading glasses in hand. So we'll like to open for a conversation or sharing. Mary, is that you would like to say something? Okay, go ahead, Mary. Yeah, that sound button, the mute button is hard to find. There we go, Mary.
Well, I was on the welcoming committee and I was Martha's mentor when she came. She was very charming and I loved being with her, but she was pretty shy. And I would suggest things and sometimes she'd think that was a good idea, but other times not. But I kept up with her through her daughter, Alexandra, because Alexandra and I shared adjacent lockers, the swimming pool. It's between 6 and 7 in the mornings. So we kind of got to know each other. And I just enjoyed seeing Martha, especially with her daughter. And I wish I'd been able to know her better, but what I did know was very delightful.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah. Yeah. I met Martha in our community and appreciate really this obituary so we can learn more about her. But I also remember her as a very private person, and as her family describes her, surrounded by books and peaceful atmosphere. Just so delighted to get to know her in this way, reading about her. But we remember Martha.
Good. This is Haley. I would like to say something about Martha.
Oh, please.
Hi. Yes. She was living here this whole time I've been working at Capitol Lakes, but I actually got to know her more with the pandemic. So, because we had to drop off ice cream snacks every Friday. So I got to learn more about her art, and I didn't know that she was like a wonderful needle worker too. And around Christmas time, we got to spend time in my office, and she was able to see videos of her grandson's new house. And she didn't say a lot, but she was very grateful and gracious. And I appreciated the time we did get to spend together.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you. Yeah, man.
Thank you, Guta. Now we remember David W Westering Md, who passed away on Sunday, January 24th, 2021, at the age of 87 due to complications of COVID-19. David was born in Milwaukee in 1933 to Dorothy Elizabeth Westering and Clarence Alfred Westering. A graduate of Whitefish Bay High School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, he earned both a Bachelor of Science in 1955 and an MD in 1958 from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He interned at the Washington Hospital Center in Washington, D.C., and through Marquette University, he completed a residency in internal medicine and held a fellowship in hematology at Milwaukee General Hospital. He then held a postdoctoral fellowship in hematology and genetics at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. David served active Army duty in 1961 to 62, and thereafter remained a major in the 32nd Division of the Wisconsin National Guard. He served as a hematologist at Queens General Hospital in Queens, New York, and at Brooklyn Cumberland Medical Center, Brooklyn, New York, as chairman of the Department of Medicine at Nassau County Medical Center, East Meadow, New York, as professor of clinical medicine at SUNY, Stony Brook, New York, as associate dean, SUNY, Stony Brook, New York, and as medical director, Nassau University Medical Center. He published 23 scientific articles and 3 textbook chapters. He was loved and trusted by his patients, and breaking with common practice, was an early advocate of truth-telling and transparency. He was delighted to be called by one of his cancer patients, the king of the positive maybe. Upon his retirement and return to Madison in 2007, he held an academic appointment in the School of Medicine and Public Health, where he volunteered teaching entering medical students and people who were unable to complete high school in the Work and Learn program. He also mentored students at Edgewood Nursing School, and as an adjunct professor at the UW Medical School, he taught clinical skills for patient-centered care to medical students. He attended many UW continuing education Plato courses and taught one entitled Appreciating Classical Music. His interests were many. David was a passionate and knowledgeable lover of classical music. He studied violin from 1941 to 1951, and during that period also sang in the St. Paul's Episcopal Boys Choir. Between the two, he developed an enduring passion for the great composers. He especially loved grand opera and held season tickets at the Metropolitan Opera in New York and Madison Opera in Wisconsin. Many of his fondest memories involve music, including a trio he formed with medical colleagues early in his career. He also enjoyed spending time with his friends and family, traveling, dining, cooking, swimming, American history, science and biographical literature, jogging. He said it was the best on the beach on Long Island, and later in life, walking. He was a gentle and inspiring man. We mourn our loss and will miss his kindness, integrity, fidelity, love, and his dry, quiet wit.
Thank you, Lene. Thank you. Well, just please unmute yourself and we'll love to hear from you. Yes, Chris.
Hi, I just want to, I'm his son, I'm Christopher Westering.
Yes.
And I'm just remembering the thing I'll miss most about him is our conversations. He was the best conversationalist I've ever known. And we would talk long conversations when he would come to visit or over the phone, and about all kinds of really neat, interesting subjects about the future, science, technology, philosophy. I could always rely on him to recommend books to me, and then I would read them and we'd talk about them. And I'm gonna miss not having that anymore. He was also one of the only guests that come to our house that we were okay with him staying more than the 3-day rule. We told him every time he visit, he can stay as long as he wants, because both my wife and I loved having him here. And he was such a good, easy person to get along with. And I'll just miss him dearly.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Yeah.
Eileen?
Go ahead, Eileen.
Well, I met Dave when he first came to Madison, to Capitol Lakes, and we found out that My daughter had gone to Stony Brook Medical School, and he was assistant director of Stony Brook Medical School. So we had a lot of conversations, and in those days we could bring family to dinner, and Laurel met Dave and on several occasions when she came to visit. And we just enjoyed his company and felt as crushed when he died, and he shouldn't have.
Right.
Hi, are you finished, Eileen?
Yeah.
Gouda, could I speak, please?
Sure. James, is that okay?
Oh, of course.
Sally, go ahead. Sally? I guess, okay. You need to unmute yourself, Sally. Not yet. It's not yet there. Okay. Well, I'll go back to, is it James?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yeah, I
go
know
ahead.
that sometimes finding that mute button can be really
Yeah,
aggravating.
that's a feedback for Zoom. They need it bigger.
That's right. That's one thing I learned about my dad. Everything's got to be really large. I live here in Madison, and I saw him on a regular basis, and he looked around for a retirement community, had several on his list, and he chose Capitol Lakes, and I can understand why. One of the things that he was really excited about was the fact that Capitol Lakes really catered to his likes and needs. They had the University of Wisconsin had the students come there and play music, quartets and so forth. There was lectures, a lot of really good events. It wasn't the bingo crowd. It was really the whole cultural gambit. And he was there for a year, I think, prior to the pandemic hitting. And it just crushed him that he became so isolated. And one of the things that he really talked about were the people that he met there. And there was one particular gentleman, the first one, John, he mentioned him to me once, or more than once, but with the opera committee that he was on. But he just enjoyed the camaraderie, the people, the activities, the pool, the exercise room. Always looked forward to going to dinner. And a lot of that was just cut short for the past year. And he unfortunately contracted COVID the tail end of his stay at the UW hospital due to a bowel obstruction. And so I was taking care of him every day. And he just got progressively worse for some reason. But anyway, I was happy to hear that the people before we talked about my dad were able to die peacefully at home or with loved ones. And that's the thing that saddens me the most, was that he died in the hospital alone. And that just really
yeah,
it's difficult. But I just wanted you guys to know, everybody at Capitol Lakes, he loved the place. He loved the environment, and he loved the people there. And he was really just getting to know a lot of you. And I'm hoping that he had an opportunity to meet you guys that were there, but we will miss him greatly. And thanks to Capitol Lakes, and thank you, Reverend, for this wonderful memorial service.
Thank you, James. Yeah. Sally, are you ready now to share?
I am
Yeah, go ahead, Sally.
I am very surprised and almost completely surprised to have read about David's career. If you met him, casually spoke to him, he never mentioned any of all the things he did. But I'll be honest with you, I live on the 5th floor of the Heights, and we only had a few people left attending our floor dinners, and we needed a man. So since I had met David as president of Clara and welcomed him into Capitol Lakes shortly after he arrived, I suggested to our 5th floor residents that it would be nice to invite David, who lived on the 2nd floor, and everyone agreed. So we began having David as our guest at our 1st floor dinners. We did that in January and February of 2020. And then you know what happened. The pandemic began and our dinners were done. But I have to tell you, in that short time, just those couple months, he had always had a smile and a kind word. And then as the pandemic wore on, as chair of the nominating committee for Clara, I thought, well, you know, he really enjoys Capitol Lakes. He enjoys the people. He enjoys being here. So perhaps he's ready to be a leader. So I called him and gave him my nominating committee speech. And he said, Sally, he said, I think I would just like to enjoy the people and enjoy the programs and live here quietly. I don't think I want a leadership position at this time. And I said, well, you know, I can understand that and so on. But it was always a very generous and kind conversation. And I wish I had known all of his accomplishments sooner. I knew he was special, but I didn't know why. So thank you, boys, for commenting like you did and filling in on the story of someone that I only knew too short a time.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you.
Huda?
Yes. Paul?
Yes. I would like to just follow up a little on what Chris's comment.
We can hear you, Paul, but we can't see you. So,
where did I go? Well,
you do what you can.
You can hear me though?
Yes.
We can hear you well.
Okay. Well, he of course came to the terraces every Saturday morning, and he led the most wonderful discussions. Every time he came prepared to engage everybody wanted to fight to get to his table so that they could share all of the things ideas that he has. And we would.
We lost the voice too. Okay. Paul, we kind of lost your voice and sound from you. So, anyone else like to share about David? Yeah, Ingrid, go ahead.
I had several occasions to talk with Dave related to voting because I witnessed his ballot a couple of times. And he was such a modest, unassuming man in these discussions, but he was so committed to voting. And we had very engaging conversations, both about the candidates and also about the differences in election procedures between Wisconsin and other states he was familiar with. So I really enjoyed anticipating that at each successive election, I'd have another chance to talk with him. So he was a very pleasant man. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. I got to know David by kind of close living quarters. He was living on the second floor of the Heights, and my office is just below his apartment, and meeting him in the hallways and just saying hello and feel his kindness and meekness and kind of intentions. And before I came across the obituary the family posted, I found online, I think from Capital Times, an interview that described students from speech club, I think from on East Side, and a group of seniors who would give a feedback to those students who are trying to sharpen their skills in speech. And so on one of the photos, there was a really young, engaging student who was presenting his speech, and in front of him was David sitting on a chair and intensely watching and taking notes and really paying full attention to what was he hearing. And I felt so much how the two of them were connected and how generous was this time that David was giving to the student. And I can only imagine the positive feedback and the learning experience that was in that exchange. So that picture just told me so much about your father and our neighbor, David. Well, we remember David. So Ruth Elizabeth Lolo, age 88, of Stevens Point, passed away on Saturday, February 20th this year at Capitol Lakes Health Center. She was born on March 8, 1932 in Cornell, Wisconsin, the daughter of Alvin and Lucinda Frederickson Hall. Ruth owned and operated Ruth's Fashion and Town and Country Gifts in Mineral Point and Village Fashions in Stevens Point. She loved going to market in Chicago, Minneapolis, and Dallas to purchase lines of clothing for her stores. She organized fashion shows and was involved in community in both locations. All proceeds from the fashion shows were donated to local charities. Ruth was loved by everyone she encountered. She was compassionate, caring, and loving. Ruth was a member at Trinity Lutheran Church in Stevens Point and Grace Lutheran in Dodgeville. Ruth married Kelly, although at our Savior Church in Cornell, November 16, 1952. They enjoyed 68 years of marriage. Ruth and Kelly wintered in Naples, Florida for many years. Snowbirds. They loved the warm weather and the tiki hut parties they had with their friends in Naples. Ruth donated her time to the Habitat for Humanity store, and Kelly helped build for Habitat in Florida. Ruth was a creative soul who enjoyed beading, sewing, knitting, watercolor painting, and photography. Ruth's creative spirit will continue with both daughters, Carolee and Susan, who share her passion for creativity. She was a redheader and loved dressing up for the Red Hat outings. Well, I saw Callie and some members of the family, so if you would like to chime in and unmute yourself and share with us about your loved family member. Yeah, go ahead. Hi, Callie.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, this is Amanda. I'm Ruth's oldest granddaughter. I just wanted to say on behalf of Grandpa, he misses her and he misses the daily calls with her. And I'll just keep her in my heart and memory as a very loving and sharp dressed lady. and we miss her a lot.
Thank you. Thanks. Kelly used to come every day on the bus to visit before COVID.
Yes, he came every day on the bus before COVID, and that was hard having to see her on Zoom, but once he got used to using the technology, right, they got to speak regularly, so that was good for him.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have to say that they were so regular in our Sunday services. Kelly and Ruth will come regularly there. So, Kelly, I miss your voice singing all the songs, church songs. I'll miss you.
Mm-hmm.
We remember Ruth. So please, now would be the time if you would like to share names of other loved ones who would like to be remembered. Jeannie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share the name of Shirley Abrahamson, and I'm sure this is a big surprise to many of you, and I have Gouda's permission to do this. Shirley died on December 19th in California in the home of her son, Daniel. She had lived, however, for a period of time in the Capitol Lakes Health Center. And she lived there anonymously. There was a confidentiality agreement for her on her behalf and according to her wishes. So some of us knew she was here and many people did not know she was here. But as the former Chief Justice of the Wisconsin Supreme Court, she needed privacy. For those of you who are new to Wisconsin, Shirley Abrahamson was the first woman on the Wisconsin Supreme Court and the longest serving justice in state history. She's going to be remembered for many, many reasons. She broke down barriers for women in the legal field, and she was a dedicated public servant who worked tirelessly and compassionately to serve the people of Wisconsin. And I think it's important for the record to show that the Honorable Shirley Abrahamson once lived at Capitol Lakes.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you. Any other names or relationships that other residents would like to share? We are all overwhelmed with the number of 500,000 people that died during this COVID in this country. And it just, that whole number sits heavily in our hearts and minds. Yeah. Well, we remember our friends and family members and neighbors. Now let us hear the Mourner's Kaddish.
For many people, death is really a very serious and, how should I put it, mournful time when to consider deaths of other people. But there is this way in which I found that many writers speak of it differently. And so I want to just share with you 3 sayings that I came across. One is from Rabbi Joshua Loth Liebman, who died somewhere in mid-1940s. And he said, "I often feel that death is not the enemy of life, but its friend, for it is the knowledge that our years are limited which makes them so precious." And those of us, I think, who are at our stage of life understand something about that. And similarly, I think I will pass on to you words of Albert Einstein on his book, Out of My Later Years. "Is there not a certain satisfaction in the fact that natural limits are set to the life of the individual, so that at its conclusion it may appear as a work of art?" So we would think of those who have left us in the last few months, and we think of their lives as works of art. The Mourner's Kaddish. I will read it first in English and then in Hebrew. "May God's name be exalted and hallowed throughout the world God created, as is God's wish. May God's sovereignty soon be accepted during our life and the life of all Israel, and let us say, Amen. May God's great name be praised throughout all time, glorified and celebrated, lauded and worshipped, exalted and honored, extolled and acclaimed may the Holy One be, praised beyond all song and psalm, beyond all tributes that mortals can utter. And let us say, Amen. Let there be abundant peace from heaven, with life's goodness for us and for all Israel. And let us say, Amen. May the one who brings peace to his universe bring peace to us and to all Israel and to all mankind. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrei kurutei, v'yamlik malchutei, v'chayichon uv'yimechon v'chayei b'kol beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imaru. Amen. Yehei shnei Rabba mavorach, le'olam alamei alamaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ah v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, v'yithada v'yitaleh
Do it again in a couple of minutes. I'll be done.
I don't think I ever put that car in park.
You better go see if your car's in.
Amiran di'alma v'imaru. Amen. Yehei shlom Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu.
Oops.
For many people,
Oops. Thank you.
In the end, what matters most is how well do I live? How well do I love? How well do I learn to let go? In the end, what matters most is how well do I live? How well do I love? How well do I learn to let go? In the end, what matters most is how well what matters most is how well do I live? How well do I learn to let go? How well do I learn to let go? How well do I matters most is how well what matters most is how well do I live? Most is how well do I live to let go? How well do I learn to let go? How well do I learn
And the end of our service, I'd like to offer this benediction. Life is short and precious, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who make the journey with us. So be swift to love, and may haste to be kind, and may the blessing of the one who made us, who loves us, and who journeys with us be upon us and our loved ones forevermore. Amen. Amen. Well, thank you all for coming to our service today. Thank you for joining us in this virtual and yet sacred place and time, and for opening and sharing with us. I wish you to be well and safe. May you be living well your life. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.